When disaster strikes, most people lose everything. But some walk away richer than before. How do they do it? And why does the same pattern repeat every single time? Throughout history, every major crisis has done something strange. It destroys lives while simultaneously creating fortunes. The Great Depression, the 2008 financial crash, the COVID-19 pandemic. Each event acts like a machine that pushes wealth upward while grinding downward on everyone else. Source: Oxfam International, Inequality Kills Report, January 2022. The numbers from COVID-19 make this impossible to ignore. Between March 2020 and December 2021, the world's billionaires increased their combined wealth by over $5 trillion. At the same time, workers globally lost $3.7 trillion in earnings. Source: Forbes Billionaire Tracker 2020-2021. International Labour Organization Global Wage Report 2020-2021. The money didn't vanish, it moved. Understanding how it moved means understanding the invisible system that decides who wins and who loses when everything falls apart. The playbook is centuries old. In 1666, the Great Fire of London burned for 4 days and destroyed over 13,000 homes. While families fled, a man named Nicholas Barbon saw opportunity in the ashes. He invented England's first fire insurance, then bought burned properties at devastated prices. As London rebuilt, his wealth multiplied more than 30 times. Source: Adrian Tinniswood, By Permission of Heaven, The Story of the Great Fire of London, 2003. Jump to September 1929. Joseph Kennedy, father of the future president, began quietly selling his entire stock portfolio. He later said a shoeshine boy giving him stock tips made him realize everyone was in the market. Source: David Nasaw, The Patriarch, 2012. On October 29th, Black Tuesday hit. Stocks collapsed by 89% over 3 years. Source: Federal Reserve Historical Statistics, 1929-1932. Kennedy held cash and bought distressed assets for almost nothing. By 1935, his fortune had grown 15 times larger. The pattern grew larger in 2006. Hedge fund manager John Paulson studied mortgage data and saw something terrifying. Millions of Americans had loans they couldn't repay, packaged as safe investments. He went to Goldman Sachs with a request: create financial instruments that would pay out if these mortgages failed. Source: Gregory Zuckerman, The Greatest Trade Ever, 2009. Goldman built them. Other investors bet the opposite way. In September 2008, Lehman Brothers collapsed. Bear Stearns failed. The S&P 500 lost half its value. Source: S&P 500 Historical Data, October 2007 to March 2009. Paulson's fund made $15 billion. Source: Bloomberg News, January 2009. Meanwhile, 8.7 million Americans lost jobs and 10 million families lost homes. Source: Bureau of Labor Statistics, 2009. CoreLogic Foreclosure Report, 2007-2015. Then came 2020. In March, as COVID-19 locked down the world, markets crashed 34% in just 23 days, the fastest drop since 1929. Source: S&P 500 Historical Data, February-March 2020. 40 million Americans filed for unemployment. Source: U.S. Department of Labor, April-June 2020. But certain investors moved fast. Warren Buffett's company deployed $24 billion buying stocks during the crash. Source: Berkshire Hathaway SEC Filings, Q1-Q2 2020. Jeff Bezos watched Amazon stock climb 76% that year. Source: Yahoo Finance Historical Data, Amazon 2020. Elon Musk's wealth grew from $25 billion to $167 billion in 18 months, a 570% increase. Source: Bloomberg Billionaires Index, March 2020, September 2021. The numbers were stark. Between March and October 2020, American billionaires added $931 billion to their wealth, while 40 million workers lost jobs. Source: Institute for Policy Studies, Billionaire Bonanza 2020, October 2020. By December 2021, U.S. billionaire wealth had grown by $2.1 trillion since the pandemic began. Source: Americans for Tax Fairness Analysis, December 2021. The crisis accelerated wealth accumulation at speeds never documented before. Let's examine the documented mechanisms. First, asset ownership. The wealthiest 10% of Americans own 89% of all stocks. The bottom 50% own just 0.6%. Source: Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances 2022. When markets crash and recover, nearly all gains flow to the top tenth. If you own no stocks, recovery doesn't help you. If you must sell during the crash to pay bills, you lock in losses. If you can hold through the crash, you recover. If you have spare cash to buy during the crash, you multiply returns. Second, information timing. In late February 2020, several U.S. senators received classified COVID-19 briefings. Senator Richard Burr sold between $628,000 and $1.7 million in stocks before the public understood the threat. Source: Senate Ethics Disclosure Forms. ProPublica investigation, March 19, 2020. Senator Kelly Loeffler made 27 trades after a private briefing, selling retail stocks and buying remote work stocks. Source: Wall Street Journal, March 20, 2020. Senate Financial Disclosures. Both denied wrongdoing. The Justice Department investigated and declined to press charges. Source: Department of Justice Statement, January 2021. The trades remain documented facts. Third, rescue asymmetry. In 2008, Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson, former CEO of Goldman Sachs, led the government response. Goldman received $10 billion in direct bailout funds. Source: TARP Transaction Reports, October 2008. When AIG got bailed out with $182 billion, Goldman received $12.9 billion through that rescue. Source: Special Inspector General for TARP Audit Report, November 2009. Meanwhile, the program meant to help homeowners reached only 1.7 million families, instead of the projected 3 to 4 million. Source: SIGTARP Quarterly Report, April 2014. 10 million families lost homes. Source: CoreLogic Data. Federal Reserve Analysis 2016. Institutions were saved in weeks. Individuals were saved slowly or not at all. Fourth, crisis acquisition. In 2020 and 2021, private equity firms raised $471 billion to buy distressed assets. Source: Bain & Company Global Private Equity Report 2021. Blackstone deployed $156 billion buying struggling businesses and real estate. Source: Blackstone Investor Reports 2020-2021. When these assets recovered, returns were extraordinary. Blackstone's real estate fund reported 38% returns in 2021. Source: Blackstone Q4 2021 earnings release. Fifth, tax optimization. An investigation using leaked IRS data showed the 25 wealthiest Americans paid a true tax rate of 3.4% between 2014 and 2018 when measuring taxes against wealth growth. Source: ProPublica, The Secret IRS Files, June 2021. Jeff Bezos paid 0.98%. Elon Musk paid 3.27%. Warren Buffett paid 0.10%. Source: same. These are legal strategies, borrowing against stocks to avoid selling them using charitable foundations and carried interest loopholes. A worker earning $50,000 pays 10-15% in federal income tax plus additional taxes. Source: IRS Tax Tables 2020. The structure differs by design. Not everyone sees this the same way. Some economists argue wealthy investors provide essential stability. When everyone panics and sells, someone needs to buy or markets collapse completely. Source: University of Chicago Booth School Research 2011. Their profit is payment for taking risk when risk is highest. After March 2020, markets recovered in 6 months, the fastest recovery ever. Source: S&P 500 historical data. This helped protect pensions and prevented deeper depression. Others point to genuine value creation. Amazon had spent decades building infrastructure that became essential during lockdowns. Tesla invested years in electric vehicles before becoming profitable. Microsoft's cloud-enabled remote work. These companies solved real problems and were compensated. Wealth, by this view, reflects value delivered. Source: Harvard Business School case studies. But critics counter with structural arguments. A billionaire who loses 50% of their wealth is still a billionaire. A worker who loses 50% of their savings might become homeless. Source: Economic Policy Institute Analysis 2019. Risk isn't evenly distributed. Neither are consequences. Wealthy individuals have access to information and networks unavailable to ordinary investors. They sit on boards, attend private conferences, employ analysts. Source Lee Drutman, The Business of America is Lobbying, 2015. Legal doesn't necessarily mean fair. There's also missing data. Offshore tax havens hold an estimated $8.7 trillion in undeclared assets. Source Gabriel Zuckman, The Hidden Wealth of Nations, 2015. Tax Justice Network 2020. The Panama Papers, Paradise Papers, and Pandora Papers revealed systematic wealth concealment. Source International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, 2016-2021. If significant wealth is hidden, our understanding of wealth transfer is incomplete. Behind every statistic lives a person. In 2008, Maria Santos, an emergency room nurse in Phoenix, never missed a mortgage payment in 3 years. Her adjustable rate mortgage reset and her payment jumped from $1,400 to $2,800. Account representative of documented cases, National Consumer Law Center testimony, 2009-2010. She tried to refinance. The bank said she was underwater. The house was worth less than she owed. In June 2009, she received a foreclosure notice. She packed her 2 daughters' belongings into her car. The bank sold her house for $87,000, less than half what she owed. Her credit score dropped 200 points. She couldn't rent without a co-signer. The bank that foreclosed, Wells Fargo, received $25 billion in government bailout funds. Source Top Transaction Records 2008-2009. During COVID, James Chen's family restaurant in Seattle closed after 38 years. His grandfather had opened it in 1982 after immigrating with $400. James invested his retirement savings, $150,000, trying to survive lockdowns. He paid staff for months after revenue stopped. Account representative of Yelp Economic Impact Report Case Studies, September 2020. His landlord, a real estate investment trust, refused rent reduction. In November 2020, James locked the door for the last time. His savings were gone. His grandfather cried. The space became a chain pharmacy. The REIT reported record profits in 2021. Source Real Estate Industry Reports. 2021. James now drives for a delivery service at 58. He doesn't think he'll retire. Research shows job loss increases depression risk by 30–40%. Source American Journal of Public Health, Longitudinal Studies 2009-2021. Foreclosure increases anxiety disorders similarly. Source Journal of Public Health 2013. Economic trauma predicts substance abuse, divorce, and suicide at high rates. Source Journal of Economic Psychology 2008-2021. Children in families that experienced the 2008 crisis showed lower test scores and reduced college enrollment for at least a decade. Source Stanford Center on Poverty and Inequality 2016. When wealth transfers, futures get rewritten. Why does this pattern repeat so precisely? Think of the economy like musical chairs with a twist. Some chairs are bolted down with names on them. When crisis hits and music stops, those without reserved chairs scramble. Many find no seat and leave the game. Those with reserved chairs sit safely, then buy the chairs of people who left. When music starts again, they own more chairs. Economists call this counter-cyclical capital deployment. In plain words, buy low, sell high. The strategy is simple. Access is not. To buy low, you need cash when prices are lowest, exactly when most people need cash to survive. You need patient capital, money you won't touch for years. Source Harvard Business School Research 2018. But 40% of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency. Source Federal Reserve Report on Economic Well-Being 2022. They have survival capital, not investment capital. Here's another lens: infrastructure asymmetry. Imagine 2 people facing a hurricane. One has a reinforced bunker, supplies, and a helicopter. The other has a tent. Both face the same storm. Outcomes differ not from intelligence or work ethic, but from systems. Wealthy individuals have crisis infrastructure, legal teams, accountants, lobbyists, analysts, credit lines, and offshore protections. Source Credit Suisse Wealth Reports Analysis, 2015-2022. Ordinary citizens navigate crises mostly alone. Government websites crash. Applications require documentation most don't keep. Complexity favors those who can hire experts. Consider also information networks. Wealthy people sit at centers of dense networks, boards, conferences, clubs. Source: Duncan Watts, Everything is Obvious, 2011. Information reaches them faster and more accurately. If your college friend runs a hedge fund, you hear opportunities before the news. No illegal insider trading needed. Structural advantage is built in. There's also moral hazard. When people know they'll be protected from consequences, they take bigger risks. Banks in 2007 knew they were too big to fail. Source: Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission Report 2011. This let them gamble with mortgages. They were right. Government rescued them. Homeowners got no such protection. Moral hazard applied selectively. This matters because crises don't create inequality. They reveal and accelerate it. Each cycle makes the next worse, because wealth compounds, access compounds, and gaps widen. Eventually, the distance becomes so vast that people live in parallel economies with different rules. Historically, that's unstable. Here's what we know. Crises transfer wealth upward through documented mechanisms. Asset concentration, information timing, selective rescues, crisis acquisition, lobbying, and tax optimization all contribute. These are legal and recorded. What we don't know is whether reform is possible within existing structures, or if structures themselves produce this outcome. The uncomfortable truth is, the rules aren't broken. They work exactly as written. The question is, who wrote them and for whom? 3 scenarios emerge. First, continued acceleration. If trends hold, wealth will keep concentrating with each crisis. Climate change is increasing disasters. Source: IPCC 6th Assessment Report 2021-2023. Each creates distressed sellers and patient buyers. The top 1% could control over half of all wealth in 20-30 years. Source: World Inequality Lab Projections 2022. Extreme concentration has never been stable long-term. Confidence: high for near-term acceleration without intervention. Second, incremental reform. Governments could strengthen insider trading laws, close tax loopholes, implement wealth taxes, increase antitrust enforcement, and expand safety nets. Source: policy proposals from Brookings Institution, Urban Institute, Roosevelt Institute 2020-2024. Norway shares oil revenue through a sovereign wealth fund. Source: Norwegian Government Pension Fund reports. France tested a wealth tax that raised billions before political pressure ended it. Source: French Ministry of Finance 2012-2017. Reform faces organized opposition with unlimited resources. In 2023, lobbying hit record highs. Source: OpenSecrets.org 2024. Confidence medium. Some reforms likely in some places, but comprehensive change faces obstacles. Third, systemic disruption. If inequality becomes intolerable, pressure could force fundamental restructuring: democratic socialism, worker ownership, cooperatives, or new monetary systems. Source: Thomas Piketty, Capital and Ideology 2020. History provides precedent. Rome, pre-revolutionary France, and the Gilded Age all saw extreme inequality trigger reform or collapse. Source: Walter Scheidel, The Great Leveler 2017. Extreme inequality never persists indefinitely. Confidence low for 5-10 years, medium for 10-20 years, high for 20-50 years if trends continue, most likely near term. Scenario 1 with elements of Scenario 2. Systems this entrench change slowly. They absorb pressure and persist. So until they can't. The wealthy don't get richer during crises by accident. They get richer because economic architecture rewards capital over labor, access over effort, and patience over need. That's not judgment. It's mechanics. The machine works as designed. The question we haven't answered is whether we want to keep running it. If this changed how you see wealth and crisis, watch our next video. How billionaires legally pay zero taxes, the loopholes explained. It follows money from crisis profits through the tax code, showing how wealth gets protected across generations through structures most people never see. Source notes and disclaimer. This script synthesizes publicly available information from government agencies, academic research, investigative journalism, corporate filings, and economic analyses published between 1666 and 2024. We prioritized peer-reviewed research and primary documents. No single source is absolute truth. Where claims remain disputed or unproven, we used qualifying language. This topic intersects with ideology. We attempted strict neutrality, while acknowledging neutrality involves choices. The subject evolves continuously. We encourage independent verification. Updates will be posted as available.